What would make minimalism a cult? The reason I asked this question is because I could see how it could very easily become a cult. If Ryan and I had the desire to turn it into a cult, we definitely could do a benevolent version of Nexium.
Yes.
Because there are certainly the roots in mysticism and Buddhism and in simple living and minimalist art and architecture, sort of all sort of combined together to make this thing. And we've had millions of people see our Netflix films, and so we have this ability to attract a certain number of people. But I think the biggest difference for me, and the reason it couldn't be a cult for us, not that it couldn't be for others, is I don't want to be with groups of people.
I know, right?
I am like the most sort of introverted. The only people I hang out with regularly are my wife, my daughter, and my best friend here. And then the group of people that's in this room, or the other people on our team, like Jess, or Emma's not here today, but like I spend more time with the people I work directly with. But even them, I feel like, I don't want power over them.
And by the way, he still doesn't like any of us.
I never claimed to.
He loves us, though.
But isn't it funny, though, that in the age of the internet, so many cults can form without like the cult leader's consent, because they're parasocial. I think of celebrity stans. Like there are really zealous fan cults that form around certain celebrities and public figures that the celebrity themselves has like almost like a toxic relationship with, or is like, oh, you're acting too radical. I wish you wouldn't, cause drama in my life this way. Or maybe their relationship, they aren't controlling that group. They're like a monster that they've built themselves because people seek community and tribes so fundamentally that, you can have this totally parasocial cult. I also think of, certain people on social media who maybe never imagined they would blow up and, have a social media quote unquote cult of their own, and it sort of metastasizes without them intentionally creating that.
So if I look at the characteristics of minimalism, it would turn into a cult if we wanted to wield power over people. I think that's the first thing that...
I can think of a few reasons. Well, I've been thinking about this. Well, I think it would be very cultish of you to, and this is totally antithetical to how you two operate, but if you instantly created this really severe us versus them dichotomy.
Yes.
Like, you cannot casually participate in minimalism. If you don't do X, Y, Z, you're not a minimalist. You're not one of us. You're the enemy.
Right.
And I've been thinking about minimalism, sort of comparing it in my mind to veganism, because like I was vegan for a long time. I still eat mostly plant-based, but whatever. I may be like 80% vegan. And I got into veganism.
The vegans hate when you say something like that.
I know.
Right.
I know. It is quite cultish. And I hate to say that, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I initially got into veganism because I was inspired by the vegan YouTube community.
Okay.
And this was during a time when high carb, low fat veganism was very trendy. It was like a lot of fruitarians and people who, treated like healthy fats and oils like they were the devil. And if you weren't and of course, no one alive is 100% vegan. Like, never encounters something that doesn't use an animal product. It's like almost impossible.
Right. Even your fruit has bugs in it.
Yeah.
How many moles had to die to get that spinach to grow?
Or how many bees had to suffer for you to eat those blueberries? You can. There's like the slippery slope argument that you can follow down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I remember, feeling like I never met any of these vegan influencers that were having such a strong effect on me, but their rhetoric and their extremism, and I'm talking about that in the context of this us-them dichotomy, was so burned into my brain that as I was living my everyday life and grocery shopping and looking at a bag of sandwich bread at the office and being starving and being like, I want to make a piece of toast, but that has a speck of whey in it, and whey is like an animal product, and I can't have that because this social media influencer who I've never even met and doesn't even know me would think of me as a bad vegan. And, over the years, I've grown older and I've, constructed my own sense of identity. And I've realized that you can have more balance and it's not always realistic. Here's the thing is that my partner has become vegetarian and I have become more vegetarian. And statistically, if more of the world just ate a little bit less meat, that would be way better than like 0.1% of the world being 100% vegan. You know what I mean? But I'm sort of thinking like, minimalism and veganism have some similarities in that, if everybody was perfectly minimalist, like, yes, that would be good for the planet. Like, the planet would benefit. The people might suffer psychologically, depending on who was having power over them. But ultimately, like, veganism and minimalism are going for something good, something objectively good, not something subjectively good. Like some, Sky Daddy will reward you later. Like, I think we can all agree that, doing things to minimize our consumerism or to minimize our meat consumption is helpful for the planet. But you can so easily take that objectively good thing and twist it so that it almost like works counterintuitively, because nobody can be 100% minimalist, nobody can be 100% vegan, and eventually there's going to be a breaking point.
Yeah,
and I think there's no prescription with me and Ryan. Like, even jokingly in our last book, Love People Use Things, there are these 16 rules for living with less. But we even talk about how they're not actually rules. Like, we don't have any. They're adjustable. And so, like,
and what's the punishment if you break one? Like, there is none.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
We don't
take away your minimalist certificate.
Yeah, you get disfellowshipped. We shun you. Right. The other minimalist friends of yours can't talk to you anymore.
Yeah. That's how it felt when I was under, again, that completely parasocial influence of the vegan community. I still think that like veganism is fantastic, and I try to abide by a vegan mentality as much as possible. But I think that us-them dichotomy and some of the buzzwords and such that are used to enforce that can be one of the most destructive aspects.
So I don't think we're talking about cult versus not a cult. I mean, after reading Amanda's book, I think minimalism is a bit of a cult. It is cultish. So the question isn't like what steps could Josh and I do like to really make this a cult? The question that you're really asking is, what steps can we do to make this a very unhealthy cult?
Exactly, because as I was saying on the public podcast, that the word cult itself is not enough to illuminate the dangers and risks that are on the table, because so many groups could be considered cults, seeing as this word is so subjective that you need to be like a little bit more specific in what you're talking about, and something can be cultish without being bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.